Right. Right, we're going live now, and it's a good evening. It's 7 o'clock in Brisbane, Queensland. Same time, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, ACT. It's 9 o'clock to our friends in New Zealand who are still in the bubble between Queensland and New Zealand for travellers, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning for our friends in the UK who are watching the show all the time. My co-host, Julia Choi, is currently speeding up to the studios to come on live, so we'll slip her in when she's ready. In the meantime, our guest tonight, really interesting. Here we go. Heinz Gugger, Swiss-born, but based here in Australia, based in Queensland. And I happened to come across Heinz several weeks ago at a presentation. Admittedly, I got drawn to the sunset, and I didn't actually quite get Heinz's 20-minute talk, but my colleague who was in the car coming back to Brisbane gave me the heads up and said, "You really need to get Heinz on the show." And I said, "Rightio, let's do it." So that's why we got Heinz here. So it's a really good welcome to Heinz. And before we go into any great depth there, Radionics and dowsing is the subject that we'd like to discuss tonight and today, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you are in the world. And so let's big welcome to Heinz. How you going, brother?
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, pretty good, I reckon. So, okay, I wasn't privy to the talk, but Lindsay really gave me a quite interesting heads up here. So for people, let's start. Should we start with dowsing, because that's a familiar subject to a lot of people?
Yeah.
So obviously dowsing has always been a credit tool. It's had a lot of credit there before satellite imaging came along with magnetic field resonances and so forth. So those people who had that instinctive nature with a twig or set of irons to go across the property to look for the water. Some people actually have that dowsing ability for gold or silver or other minerals as well. So let's start with the concept of dowsing, because you do workshops and you teach people as well. So let's start with that, Heinz. Let's start with it.
All right. Yeah, thank you. I mean, dowsing is an interesting subject, and people accept dowsing for water, and it's done since eons. I mean, it's nothing new. They used the twigs, they used sticks and pendulums and all this. So we still use that in today's days, that we actually go and find water wells. And what we can detect as well is not just where they are and how deep they are, but also the quality of water and the water flow. And there's a lot of the technical tools are out there, but a lot of the big corporations take us as a backup to make sure where they ever want to drill or they want to go and find gold or gas, they're actually going to ask a dowser as well to reconfirm if they're on the right spot. So they're not going to tell you that. They're going to keep that very close, because that could a little bit distort their image. So we work a lot for big corporations, so just to double check that we're on the right track. So water dowsing is what people know, but there's another side of dowsing as well, is we can find, detect, and quantify energies in people and in houses as well. So we use then a dowsing tool to transmute, change, and remove these detrimental energies on a house. And when I say detrimental energies, that's anything and everything which is related to a person, which can make them uncomfortable, sick. And I'm not using negative and positive, because the Earth grid has negative and positive and neutral. The Earth is encapsulated with different energies, from ley lines to energy lines to Hartmann lines and Curry lines, but they have a job to do, and they have a certain frequency and a resonance, but they're neutral, positive, or negative. So when I talk detrimental, that's anything which is not beneficial for the human or animal body. And so when we're able to do in a house, for example, when people have issues in a house, and we had big issues when they installed smart meters in Brisbane a few years ago, people had headaches. So what we were able to do is then pinpoint where the source is and change this energy, this frequency which got emitted from the smart meters, and And it was basically just using a dowsing tool and transmute these energies. And it's a tool which is getting more and more important, because not just for dowsing for water, but also we just had a case. My son want to buy a car. So, he has 6-7 cars to look at, and we use a dowsing tool to find out what's the benefit using that car for him. What's the integrity of that car? What's the integrity of the dealership for that car? So if I'm measuring it on a dowsing chart, the integrity of a dealership is only 10, I can quantify that. I might not go to that dealership, but if I have an integrity of 80-90%, I might lean towards that dealership more. So lately what happened is, the last probably 3-4 years, we got a lot of requests for water dowsing on farms. And because we had a drought here, and the bores are getting a little bit dry, the quality of the water is not as good anymore. And so instead of drilling new holes, we were able to pull in new streams. So when we have permission from the land, and if we're allowed to do it, instead of drilling a new bore, maybe just like 10-20 meters away, that stream, instead of drilling, we just pull back into the old bore and double the water source, or triple the water source sometimes. So that's not just the traditional dowsing. So it does more than just finding water. So it is used to quantify things. So a lot of the times people know already, they have a gut feeling and have a gut sense that this is right. Or when they go and they want to buy vitamin C, they know a little bit what is a good vitamin C for them or not. And people have a little bit more sensitivity. They tend towards have better decisions, but the dowsing tool will help you quantify. So if you're standing in front of the big wall of vitamin C, you can take a dowsing tool and you go like, okay. And the important is to ask the right question. So, for example, at that stage, for me, to improve my digestion, for example, how beneficial would it be, that vitamin C? And it gives you a number on the chart. So it might be 2%. That vitamin C might be 10%, and the other vitamin C might be 90%. So then you can make a decision to buy the 90% vitamin C, because that's more beneficial, more absorbent for you and for your health. In the last time, we had a lot of people where they had issues, so they went to some energetic healing practices. So some people, they go to Kairos and acupuncture and Reiki, whatever the modalities are, it doesn't matter. And when they came back home, 3-4 days later, they lost it. So in the clinic, they had a really good result, and the practitioner found out that they're really good on track with their health. They go back home and they're basically falling into the same track again. And so the last 5 years, I get calls from a lot of people all over the world to clear their houses. So they're not coming back into the old habit, in the old pattern. And when they go back to the practitioner, at least they can improve their healing modalities again. So that's an interesting observation we had the last 5 years. It seems the energy overall is shifting. It's getting higher, not just good and bad. So the manifestation from people, the emotions they have, manifest much quicker than they were 10 years ago.
So two things that come to mind. Welcome, Julia. Nice to have you.
Well, thank you. Great to be on the show with you, Heinz. Hi, everyone that's
hello,
joining
Julia.
us.
So the first one was the car dealership. Are you actually asking a single question relating to the management of that organization, its whole energy field that relates to the dealership, or the actual salesperson you're actually communicating with?
Right. When, for example, in that case, and that can be then a different case as well, I would first ask the overall dealership, right? So the dealership overall, what integrity does it have? And that's, that could be from the salesperson, that could be from the accounting staff, that could be from the service. So how do they handle complaints? So it's a tool, I mean, a lot of people, I use the same techniques when people call me up and say, look, I got 3 houses here. Which of the house gives me the best safety, or which one gives me the best integration into the area where I want to live? They know the price of the house. They know where it is. But these are all these subtle questions where you want to get an answer, but you don't know where to get them from. So with the dowsing tool, they can ask and says, all right, how are your neighbors left, right, and front or back? What's the future of it, down the road? Will it be an area which will bloom? And no. And one example I had as well was the house was really, really good. The area was okay, but then how would this family fit into the community? And that was very, very low, because the reason was he was Indian, and when he would move in the house, he never would feel home because the community would not accept him. So these little questions we can then pinpoint using dowsing tools.
So the second question is dowsing tools. I got a mate who uses a pendulum all the time. Are you using that as a form of a tool, or are you using the actual rods?
No, I don't, not anymore. I mean, most of my working tool is a pendulum. So, it's very easy to carry. You can ask quick. You see sometimes people in the shopping mall using it, checking for the integrity of the food or the highest quality of the food. I use the pendulum on the chart. You see a chart right there. So it's very easy to find out and combine and stack things together to make sure they all work together properly. And you can quantify that very easily as well. So I use a pendulum for that. But for water dowsing, I use the L rods. So I just use the regular, the copper L rods, and you can use the fencing wires again. And I don't have the belief system that you have to have a certain tool to achieve a certain outcome, because by the end it is you and your intent which makes that happen. And then for clearing, I like the bobber. So a bobber is like quite a long string of metal attached to a handle, and it has then you spin it, creates a nice, beautiful vortex. And as we know, we use vortex in farming, in biodynamic farming. The whole earth is a vortex. So we're tapping into that vortex scalar field for clearing and transmuting and changing energies.
So Julia probably come in here because of her living her experiences in Asia, where they're using Feng Shui. Priests are looking at all the different meridians and making sure the tiger and the dragon are in harmony, and working with numbers. Is that you, Julia?
Yeah, well, not that I know how to do it, but it's always fascinated me. And actually, Heinz, I was really fascinated to hear what you were saying about being able to pull in the streams to double or triple the amount of water that's flowing through the existing ley lines. Like, how do you do that? Do you kind of ask the spirit of the stream to come across, or do you just imagine it happening, or sort of how does that work? I mean, that's a bit of a mind bender, that.
I know, it is out there, but by the end, this is a tangible result. Are we always 100% correct? Does it always 100% work? No. Even with water dowsing, I mean, we're at the moment, if you're 92%, you can say that's good. There's never 100% guarantee. And with the moving the stream, it's very similar. The first thing I do, and that's for all my work I do, is I get permission from the source. So I make sure before I do anything, I have the capability, and I'm accepted to do that work. So I can go out and do that field. So when I do a water stream, for example, we talk to the elemental beings on the land. We'll get permission from the spirit of the land. If they say, no, you can't do it, even there's a water stream there, we're not going to do it. So when we have my own farm, we grew persimmons. That's when I learned to look at certain things and observe that these energies have an effect on farms as well. You can be nutritionally really, really strong or good. Biological could be good, but your energy side is weak. And you can see that on the trees. You can see certain areas don't work very well. And when we went into the drought, we had a bore, we had 3 bores, and there was a water stream. So I had a big binder with different modalities I used, but it just got way too much. So I had to narrow it down to like a place where I can say or work very simple and get good results. So it took me a little bit, took me 10 years to get to that point where I can say, now I got it properly. So the first time I moved one in, I got permission. I was so happy, but 3 days later it moved back. And I didn't know why it moved back. So what's wrong? So when I do this, I I use earth acupuncture in that case. So we create almost like a copper rod, and we put little spirals around, and we bury that into a certain area which we douse beforehand. And then we move the stream most of the time, and then we put copper pins in there like acupuncture to hold the line in. And that made it then stay there as well. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. So that you kind of learned by yourself, or did you get taught that?
No, you do a little bit. I had a mentor who was Hugh Lovell was a mentor who was a biodynamic farmer, and he got into the biodynamic field broadcasting. And when you go into biodynamics, the issue we had on the farm was always when we had the fruit ready, we had fruit fly, we had bats, and we had lorikeets. Now, the old way of doing things, you just go onto the field and you shoot and you give them a little bit a goodbye. But you're never going to win. There's no way you can, get rid of these bats and birds and fruit flies. So when he talked about biodynamics, they use a system called peppering. And when we start integrating peppering, which is like a modern form of when, the farmers had issues with foxes, what they do, they hang a fox on the fence. And that created the field that the foxes don't come in. So when you pepper one, you create a field or an energy where it's detrimental for these beings to be on the farm. So when we integrated that into the farm, that's my first approach to energies 15 years ago. And he taught me the dowsing, but then, I'm the guy who can sit still. Yeah, I try things, but I probably did things where, I shouldn't have done, but you learn always. And I remember as one thing where we had the lorikeets, and we go like, that's good. So I'm going to set up a Radionics broadcast to keep them out. And then the next morning I got up in the paddock. So instead of they all disappeared and they stay outside my designated area, I had millions of them in there. So I pulled them in instead of pulling them away. So you just learn, and you just have to do, as long as you have the respect and the permission, we always try to do the best for the land and for the people. Yeah.
I think I'm intrigued because, I think as humanity is at that point where we recognize that we can either act out of fear or out of sort of welcoming and acceptance. So I'm just wondering, when you put in a program to keep the lorikeets away, and you ended up attracting more of that, how did you turn it around later? What works?
Yep. So what I did at that stage, I was really at the beginning of my journey there. I took a feather off a lorikeet which was just laying on the ground, and when I broadcasted this, I thought, I broadcast a pepper, but the pepper is basically when you take that and you burn it in a hot ash and hot coal, so you have a carbon, and that creates the reverse energy field. But when I just plucked a feather from a bird, that was not enough. That was actually still had life force in it. So instead of taking the life force out and treat them outside the boundary, it was attracting their life force. So this is really good if you do this on trees or on two-legged and four-legged animals, where you can go in and tune in and say, all right, we want to increase your G, or you want to have the energy flow going. But if I'm working with pests, well, we call them pests, but that's usually a sign of something not working properly. I just have to make sure I'm not, all the signals have to be reversed, or they have to be incompatible with with what we're trying to achieve. And I always use the analysis when you probably see the opera singer holding a glass, and they're putting a frequency into the glass, and the glass just explodes. That's what we're trying to do when I want to move things along. And it doesn't matter. The nice thing is you don't need to be on site. You can. I'm here in Australia, in Gympie, and I got customers all over the world. And if I have the right tools, I work with people in Argentina and a lot of people in the States to move or clear out diseases and pests in their crops. So you have to have a certain tools and certain DNAs to do this. So over the years, we just learned to use more modern technology.
So what kind of pests are people all over the world trying to get rid of at the moment? Have you dealt with locusts?
No, not locusts at the moment. At the moment, I had a farmer from Argentina who had pig problems. So he was ready to pick his salads, and the pigs came in and just really topped his salads off. So what we did, we worked on his farm remotely from here, and he sent me an email back after 2 days. To 70% they were gone, and then a week later they were to 90% gone. So we didn't kill them, we just made them so uncomfortable in that area, so they don't like that. We have people here in Queensland, they're running organic farms, and they had soybeans. So they allow soybeans, and they had a little grub in there, like a shield bug, or they called a stink bug. And so because he's local, he was able to send me a few ski samples. And for the whole season, we were able to keep the shield bugs and the mice under control, because down in that area in northern New South Wales, where they had a mouse plague, so we were able to control them. We never got rid of them 100%, and that's not the idea. We can't do that, but we were able to manage it so they still had a crop, and it was manageable.
And all of this is done just by the traditional tools, or with the machines that you've got in the background there?
No, I use Radionics tools for that. Yeah. So these are the instruments in the back, which I use, where you basically you can enhance, so you can find what the issue is. So it's like when you look at a symphony, and when a symphony is playing fantastic, everything is in balance. But if a symphony is out of balance, we use these little knobs where we tune into the radio station, and we tune the radio station back so the symphony comes back into the system. The body knows what to do. So what we'll do is we'll just push it along, and we put the frequencies in, and the sound or the color or the crystals or the homeopathic back in to enhance the system again, to heal itself.
And in terms of units, what do they measure? Do they match like frequencies as in hertz, or is it scalar technology, or what kind of sort of what units?
Yeah.
So talking about this.
Yeah. So we measure with these tools. We can analyze first, and then we can broadcast, and we can imprint. So on a scalar field, we measure how good is the overall system working or not working. And then we have a lot of different signals or radio stations which we then can look at and says, all right, what is out of balance? So is there a virus in there? So I had one lady, they have very, very expensive bulls, some of the breeders. So I'll check their bulls on a monthly base, and I just scan and says, all right, that frequency, that scale, the signal, how does it compare, in a healthy environment? And we picked it up before it even happened. So there was some Bacillus E. coli in that bowl before it even appeared. So we were able to work with homeopathics and with broadcasting the signal to move that E. coli signal back into balance again before it even appeared. So it's a good analyzation tool, and it gives numbers. So I like to, because I'm Swiss, I grew up into like a very Western, numbers guy. And it's really nice when I can compare what do we have now, where is the system, and where do we need to go. And we have a lot of different charts where we can compare and analyze that, and then make the right decision what to broadcast and what to use to bring the system back into balance.
And is the scalar meter, is that the same thing as what the time waver and the Healy machine uses?
The what uses the
time waver? Therapists use for time waver and Healy. They talk about scalar frequencies as well. Is that the same thing, where you measure what's out of sorts in the human energetic field?
Yeah, it's similar, but there's a lot of, at the moment there's a trend, into that system, and there's a few systems out there which copycat a little bit what's out there, and they're trying to use a name like Tesla and Scalar to put it in. And when you do the research, there's a few really, really good instruments out there and machines out there they use, but some of them, they're actually not beneficial. They could be actually detrimental. But that's when you go back to your dowsing tools. You know, before you buy anything, invest anything, make sure this works properly. So we had some people where they bought certain instruments and they put them on, but they actually got very sick. So that wasn't like a healing crisis. That was actually shifting the whole system out of balance. When we looked and said, right, for example, what is your vitality today? And it's 50. Now, if you integrate that system into your overall health, what will it do? If it goes up, you're on the right track because you're increasing your vitality or your G or your overall coherence. But if it goes backwards, you're putting something in your system which is not good. So that's the same when you drive a car. When all 4 tires are really, really good, pumped to the same PSI, it runs really smooth. But if one tire is a little bit flat, you know, you have a problem there. So you're going to fix that little tire which is flat. And you want to bring the whole car into balance again. So in that case, I would use a dowsing tool to find out, is this tool beneficial for me? And if it's beneficial, I would use it. But always check, because it might change. In 2 or 3 months, it might change. And that's what we do with nutrition and vitamins. So we have people, you know, they go, I need this magnesium. Well, do you really need it? For what? And then you can check with a dowsing tool, yes, you need it, and that's the better brand, and then only use it for 2 or 3 months, and then that's it. It doesn't work anymore because you reached a level of magnesium where that can't do anymore. So it's a very interesting tool to have, and when you start using dowsing tools, you change as well, because you're connecting to a source, and instead of just, you take your blinders off, automatically this will happen because you're starting to work in subtle energies, and without you knowing it, you will change. Now, you might not know you change, but your people around this will know that you change.
Hearing you.
Yeah, I had some interesting comments from a few people where we did a house clearing and or a farm clearing. We had one customer, he grows avocados, and so we got a soil test done, we got a leaf test done, and we put him onto a natural organic farming system. But his last 9 rows never had beautiful avocados, and the trees never looked healthy. And so what we did is we took a leaf test and a soil test from the good patch and not the good patch, and a leaf test, and comparing nutrition and the leaf samples, wasn't a big difference there. So and I checked and says, all right, there's something going on energetically. So he had on that little strip there, on these last 9 rows, he had aboriginal burial sites underneath. And when we went onto the paddock, you felt it. Some people feel it in your stomach a little bit, it rumbles. But when we did a muscle test with him on that spot, he actually tested very weak. So what we did, we cleared these energies out, balanced the whole farm, did a few other things. And a year later, the trees looked like nothing happened. Just not with putting more nutrition on or more fertilizer or more biology. It's just clearing the energy, move it away. So, and you could see it right away. I mean, a year later, you could see there was no more difference, and the trees looked really nice. We had a clearing done from somebody, and immediately he called me back 2 days later and says he had a hernia, and the hernia's gone, because just by removing these detrimental energies, he for years he had a hernia, and after the clean, the hernia left. We never focused on that. We just cleared the house balance. We just balanced the house itself. Another lady called back and says, well, when we did the clearing, she felt like really sick for like a day. Some energy moved, but her husband, which usually doesn't cook and does vacuum and doing housework, he started vacuuming and doing kitchen work and start cooking dinner. That wasn't the intent. The intent is just remove and balance the detrimental energies in these houses. Now,
okay, ladies, pay attention. You want to hire this man.
That's
not your house. Happy house, happy husband, Jeff. Happy man.
Yeah. But it's interesting that I live close to the coast, so like 40 minutes, 50 minutes away from the coast. And when we clear houses close to the coast, we have much more underground water under the houses. And in 1930, there was a town in Germany which had a very high cancer rate. And at that time, they didn't have Wi-Fi and EMF and all that stuff we have here now, man-made. They had a little bit, but not as much. But the town next to it didn't have as much of the cancer. So what they did, they commissioned the dowser to go and douse every underground water stream and gas lines. And so after 7 months, and a policeman was actually following him to make sure there's nothing going, on without not illegally going on. So when he took his findings, his lines, and he narrowed it down in strength, and they overlaid all the people who died of cancer, 95% of the people who died of cancer were living over underground water line. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you have underground water, it has can have a physical effect on your health. And I come across that a few times, that when we check before, how much do these detrimental energies affect you emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, and the physical is high, there's sometimes the cause is not the knee which is bad, or it's this. It's actually a detrimental energy which can cause a physical appearance in your body. So what we're trying to do is find the cause behind the cause and then remove that, and sometimes your physical might change.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. I mean, I think when you've got underground water, the energy is, as you say, it's vortexing out and away, and the body is designed to actually take in earth energy. So if you're sleeping over a vortex, your energies, the earth energy that you should be getting is just going to be draining away. So
they call it geopathic stress, something, no? Is that what they call it?
Sorry?
They call it geopathic stress. Is that what they call it?
Geopathic stress, yes, that's what you call it, isn't it, Heinz?
Yeah, but geopathic stress is also, for me, geological faults, sacred sites which is down there. So I look at geopathic stress as the over chapter, but there's so many different smaller chapters underneath. And the old way was you moved your bed, away from these over water lines. Or sometimes, Europe is a little bit more advanced. Before they even build, they make sure that they have no water underneath. Or you move house. But now with these energies available, which we have right now, we're able to transmute and change them. And that's easily checked with a muscle test before and after, or when you take your dowsing rods, you go over and you find them and you clear them, you change them. We're not moving them, we just make them neutral. And if you go back with your rods and you don't pick them up again, then your job is done. And most of the time, people sleep better when they're not over underground water anymore.
That's true. Heinz, what about 5G fields? I know a lot of members in our audience are really, really concerned about that. Do you find that makes impacts human health or animal health?
Yeah, and what we found out is when we check this, and when we do at the course, we'll do some exercises on 5G with the phone, without the phone. Certain people, when we measure out of 100%, are only affected in the lower range, so maybe 0 to 20. So there's people out there where they have hardly any symptoms like this. And there's people out there, as soon as they get close to it, their teeth starting to rattle. So everybody is different. And I think the point as well is that if somebody tells you something, it might not be necessarily what you need. And that's really good when the TV tells you, if you don't do this, you don't have this. So they're selling you stuff, and we're so gullible in the subconscious as well to believe. And when you do a dowsing tool and use these, you can actually find out for me or for whoever that is, if this is actually what they need, it's beneficial. So when we do these 5G, or if you live close to a tower, I'm not trying to do just one thing, and that's what all my work is. I never do one thing and that fits. I try to make a cake, so I put a lot of different things into the cake and buffer it as much as I can. So one of the first thing we do, we neutralize the energies from the phone, or for 5G, and that you can test that with a muscle test. So if you do a muscle test before and you hold your phone, you'll test weak. You do a clearing, and after the clearing, you're strong. That means your system is already tuned that it doesn't get affected with the 5G. And then we integrate certain tools into the phone or on you to actually also block it. We can't block it, that it doesn't come through you, but it will transmute. So we use certain scalar tools to help as well. But there's also the common sense. I mean, if you have a house, then turn your Wi-Fi off. Don't sleep with your mobile phone next to the bed. Make sure your nutrition is properly. So it's not just one thing. There's a few different things you can do to buffer it. We never get away from it. That's too late. It's not going to stop. But if we know we can use that tool, we can use this tool and that tool, and the more we can buffer it against the electrical lines, the water lines, the EMFs, the geopathic stress lines, the better we are protected for our own health and longevity as well.
It's really pretty remarkable, isn't it? That you can neutralize or buffer energetic fields that probably have quite high voltage or wattage or whatever physics term it is that one use. Is it like the old times? Is it like you change the energetic field just with your intent, or by working with source, you change the actual, I don't know, the patterning?
Yeah, and everything, I mean, science tells us everything has a vibration. Matter does not really exist, right? Matter is only information in a field. So when they're trying to find out what matter is, what they see spinning vortexes in a different frequency, in a just lower vibration. So, and everything has a magnetic and electric output, also has a scalar field, has an information attached to it. So what we're doing, we're not changing the physical. We have an effect on the physical, but we work on the scalar field, on the information field. We want to change the information attached to that, which has a physical outcome. So what we'll do, we're tapping in with source and with the guides and with intent. So what we'll do, we ask the question if you have the permission to do this, use one of the tools, and the tool is basically then only a timer to change that information field, that scalar field attached to whatever we're trying to do. And it can take 5 minutes or 10 minutes until that scalar field is changed, information is changed. And then when you go back and measure on the physical and your muscle testing strong, that means we changed the information component to that scalar field to that phone. And that's what we're doing when we do dowsing and with radionics as well. We can do that very quickly. But the benefit is
the clearest explanation I've had so far. Thank you, and it perfectly makes sense. I mean, it seems very logical, actually.
Yeah. But the benefit is the dowsing tools are used for shifting and changing energy. You can do that fairly quickly, and everybody can do it. That's the God-given right which we planted into us with all how we structure this with our nervous system, that we're able to access these fields. What hinders us is our own fear sometimes of knowing, or because people told you sometimes you're not allowed to do that, you can't do that. So we are our own worst enemy sometimes to do certain dowsing tools. But we had at the course when I teach, we have people from 14 to 84, and everybody does. Now, and I'm not going to say that this is exactly how it needs to be. If the pendulum for certain people swings a little bit slower, that's okay. And if it goes to the left instead of to the right, but you get the results, that's okay. So it is trusting yourself that you have that gift to do it. And there's a lot of people just don't have that gift. And the other thing is asking the right questions. And if it doesn't work, then, or if the question is not what it works, then the dowsing doesn't work. But if you, for example, a really bad question would be, is this vitamin C good for me? Well, for what and when? What are you trying to achieve and how much? So it is important to ask the right question, the proper question. Then you get the proper answers, because if you don't get the proper answers, you basically don't get the result. But it's also, when you do this, it's training. So when you do radionics, it works a little bit different, because our intent is then taken over by an instrument. So when we have an intent, what we want to do, we can put the signals in and walk away. Now, by the end, do we really need this instrument? No, we don't need it. We have the power ourselves. But the problem is, how long can you hold a certain frequency and vibrate at the same exact level until that problem is solved? I mean, if I would do that with pests, I would probably sit there for 5 hours. But after, 30 seconds, my mind goes like, oh, what's for dinner, what's for tea, and what's this, and what's this. So the instrument will basically take exactly what I want to see, and they broadcast it exactly to that frequency and resonance which I have planned. And I can walk away. I can do something else. So I got in my back, I got a few instruments, and I got my whole office is full. So I have 15, 16 programs running at the same time. So I don't need to be on one person. And my energy is not affected because I take my intent and I put it onto a scalar system which takes over for me. So, and that's the benefit of using radionics and make a change because you're actually stepping away from that system. And when you do some hands-on work, if you're not careful, you get drained a little bit. So that's not the case when you do radionics. You can do the same, and we can integrate colors, we can integrate frequencies, we integrate music, we integrate sound, whatever is needed to achieve the desired outcome.
And Heinz, it really fascinates me, especially in the radionics, as you say, it makes sense to have a machine or something that emits the frequencies that you want sustained and for the duration that is required to change the field. So is there must actually be data that's been collected about what are the optimum frequencies? You mentioned before that there are charts. Where is that information or data or research coming from? Has humanity actually got to that stage where it knows exactly what frequencies is required for healthy soil or for healthy waterways, etc.?
Yeah.
Can you look that up?
Yeah, radionics started around 1920 with a doctor in San Francisco. So Dr. Abram started this. So what he did, he was luckily, because he came from a rich family, he was a very, very smart guy. And he found out that he had patients there, healthy patients, but when they had a specimen of a disease on them, and he found out with succussing on original that the succussum had a different tone. So he was able to determine, so if you're healthy, you succuss at a certain tone. But if you got, for example, syphilis, that tone, that little succussing tone will change. But he got into trouble when there was between cancer and syphilis. It was very similar. So what he started to do is put copper wires onto these specimens, and then he put an ohm meter in between. So when he started putting an ohm meter in between, he found out every time, there was a difference in that person's energy field, he had a different ohm meter. And out of this, that was basically the beginning of radionics. And then it took quite a big step, and England took a big step forward, and they're still practicing radionics in a official way for human health. And there are different books and rates written about it for all these different instruments. And when you do courses you come to one of these events, you get these radio signals, really, right? But again, you might say somebody tells you, for example, liver or spleen is that signal, but we make sure that signal is not just a standard for you. What else do you need? So when we put sounds in, there's the saying like 528 is your DNA. If that's fine, then we broadcast 528 through this instrument to you. But maybe for you it's 529 or 527. So when we scan and make sure, before we turn anything on and broadcast, we always make sure this is what you really need. So there is some guidelines out there, but we customize it to each situation.
Well, that's huge, the duty of care that you have. And do you find there's a lot of variances in people or even within families of, say, the frequency of the DNA?
Families is not as much. They're very similar, right? But when we do, sometimes we work with DNAs and RNAs, and we do resets also on animals. The younger they are, the quicker it goes. The older they get, the harder it is to shift things a little bit. But you just have to come from a different angle, because what we do as well, we can analyze, we broadcast, but we can make imprints. So we can make homeopathics, but above homeopathic imprints. So a lot of times it is not working on the issue. Like the doctor looks at the symptom, we look at the cause. What's the cause behind the cause? Now, the cause behind your elbow or your back pain might be not the back, it is a core belief. It could be that when you grew up, you had a trauma, and suddenly, instead of broadcasting elbow or spleen or liver or kidney, what we broadcast is just a core belief like, I love myself. I deserve to be healthy. I accept this healing. The desire to heal, when we do a little pre-check, the desire to heal, people and animals sometimes, they tell us, I want to be healed. I want to have a healthy balance. But then when we check, it's actually not. Their conscious mind thinks it is, but their subconscious mind doesn't want to be, get the healing and the balance. So what we did is we have to work on some underlying issues before we can do actually a shift. So it's not just putting a Band-Aid on, it's actually going to the cause and make that information change in the field so it doesn't trickle down through to the symptom anymore.
Wow, this is fascinating. It's so detailed. So you actually work with animals as well, and in terms of, I guess, in a kind of kinesiology, homeopathic way, and work out whether, what they need or what they want.
Yeah.
In order to
and animals are very, because they don't know that we do anything. And so they don't have they're not impacted with their conscious mind says, oh well, it must work or it doesn't work, so they're going to do it. And the results we see in horses, so there's the horse racing industry in Australia is quite big, so they're trying to source any opportunities to be a little bit advantage of that. So, if you can check on a horse and we can say we get that ready for a certain race, we increase the general vitality, the chi flow, for that. That can give him, a little bit advantage. I mean, I have a dog here. The dog is a farm dog. It's a Kelpie. He's 17 years old. And then I turned the radionics on the dog. She comes in and she lays exactly under the instrument I have her on. She comes out, she feels like she's 2 years again. She started, jumping around, but she's 17, has a little bit of hip pain, but she behaves like it's a 2-year-old.
Well, Julie, Julie, he's tapped into some of your subjects there, and he's tapped into Qigong that you do and you teach, and you do your past life or hypnosis that delve into the subconscious and release things. So very similar. Similar training here, isn't it? Cross-pollination.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. And I guess in Qi terms, when say Heinz talks about source, we would talk about the Tao, the living, the flow of energy. Everything is energy, and our thought patterns and our preferences add polarization, or in a detrimental or in a unifying way, but underlying is energy. And I was actually just reading and experimenting today with playing with certain emotions and just deconstructing them, like a smashed avocado sandwich, back into pure energy that you can then purify through the heart and just send out as pure energy. And then, of course, because the outside comes back to you, it comes back to you and supports you. So it's just fascinating to have Heinz talking. And Heinz, I really appreciate, because a lot of people will not bother to try and explain, but you're doing just a wonderful job at that. So I think you'd be a great great workshop teacher to teach people about this. Just one quick hook back to a question that's pretty obvious to me after what you just said about when we're talking about working on DNA and RNA. At the moment, a lot of vaccinations include the mRNA as a carrier carrier vessel, have you been asked or have you experimented with affecting the frequency in a positive way on that?
When we go back to the start of radionics, and all the people who were pioneers in that, they got to a certain point, and then they were not allowed to continue. So they were basically had powers to be walk in and basically took them apart. That happened to Wilhelm Reich and Reif, to Dow and everybody. So we have promising results.
So you have promised what? I missed that. You have promised what?
Promising results.
Okay, we hear you. Okay. Well, that's good. What is it? Mind over matter. Intent over patterns.
That's it.
Absolutely.
That's a multi-layered approach, but yeah, I think the worst thing is, you know, when people come from fear, and that's the thing which we work on the first thing, and then when we make the cake, we are just trying to use all these different modalities to make a beautiful cake, and so it's basically not it can't take a foothold.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Jeff, we had Auntie Minnie Mace, who's an Aboriginal elder, on the show, and she kind of put it very bluntly. She said, each human that's alive on the earth is either on the making a mess team or on the cleanup team. I think Heinz is definitely on the cleanup team. Plus, he makes beautiful cakes of energy that are a blessing to the land or the animals or the humans that are on it. And you're teaching it. So Heinz, tell us more about, you know, sort of how can people learn about, you know, these really quite amazing capabilities that you have.
Yeah, so the dowsing course we do is the next one's coming up in September in Palm Woods, which is just outside the Nambu Sunshine Coast. And that's a 2-day hands-on course. And I might be a little bit different because I went to a lot of the seminars, even in agriculture, and there was a lot of talk. And people just like, and now, you know, I want to show you how to, it's a hands-on course. we're not just going to talk and have a good time. It's actually hands-on. So the dowsing course is 2 days where we go through using charts, and by the end of the second day, you're able to clear your own house and property. And then when you know these tools, you just go out, and we also do some water dowsing out there, and we'll just experiment a few things. We look at energies of trees, and we also look at supplements, nutrition. It's a big variety, so we cover everything, and it's intense because it's not just sitting around. It's a hands-on course, and the same is the dowsing and the radionics. You have to go through a little bit of beginner's course to actually understand how these instruments work. How do you put a witness in? How do you put a DNA in? How are these signals work? How do you combine frequencies with reagents, and how do you get a stick and the dowsing response and all that stuff? And then the second day, and we have that once we started that, once a year we have our master course. So these are all practitioners and farmers come in for a once-a-year gathering. And so there's a lot of exchange going on. There's a lot of information sharing going on. And that's when we bring it to another level of using these tools to make physical changes, to shift in a landscape, to enhance energies. And roughly 50% are farmers and 50% are practitioners. So there's always a good mix of people there coming from different walks of life, and a lot of people doing it, but nobody will tell you that. So there's actually a lot of big corporations in the farming industry which I work for on their field and on their land, but they're not going to tell you that. So it is out there, but it's kept a little bit in the dark.
Yeah, I think in Australia, certainly there's quite a, because they've all worked with dowsers growing up, there's quite a big acceptance. But as you say, people won't really won't say that publicly for fear of ridicule. But I guess Jeff, what we're hearing from Heinz is that the technology is there. Humans have the capability to change the energetic fields that they live in, or that they farm off, or that they sleep in, or work in, and play in. I guess, Heinz, what do you think is the biggest thing that's actually holding people back from realizing that or activating that part of?
I think the first is to trust themselves. They don't think. I always took the approach that if somebody can do it, I should be able to do that too, right? Because if when you go through history and you go even back to Jesus, and he always said, I kept just paraphrasing, what I do, you can do and do better. So we have the God-given gift to do this, and I think people don't trust themselves. But there's also the fear of the own family sometimes. We see that in farms too, where the younger generation are actually very open to do new things. They're trying new things. But, dad is still on the farm and grandpa's still on the farm. It's like, no, we did it 20 years this way. We're going to keep on doing it 20 years this way. So it's almost like the generation has to pass away before the new generation can start up. But then interesting that sometimes the older generation wants to do radionics and they want to do biodynamic broadcasting, and the young generation holds them back. But most of the time the younger kids are more open to do this, and they try, give it a go. So I think there's a change coming already. But it's the fear of what the neighbor can say. It's the fear of I'm different. I don't fit into the system, right? And so that's usually what's holding people back until they start talking. And somebody pushes a little bit and they go, oh, yeah, I do this too. So by the end, when we have results on farms, or when we shift water lines and all this stuff, I don't care how it works, and they don't care how it works. When we have permission and we do something good for the benefit of all and detriment of none, for the benefit of the land and the people, and we are able to do it and we have results, by the end, it doesn't really matter how it works, because we're not doing it in a bad intent. We always have a beneficial intent, a good intent behind it. And if it's a detrimental intent, it wouldn't happen. So the idea is then some people need to understand scientifically how this works, and there's really good research done about radionics and dowsing, but it can't be explained because we're putting two worlds together, and we take the spiritual side with the scientific side and we merge that. And so either you're scientific or you're spiritual. And if you merge it, a lot of people don't have the capacity or the willingness to look at both sides and accept both sides.
Hey, I've just been trawling through your website here, and I see you got this is it a dipole broadcaster, is it?
Well, it's a biodynamic field broadcaster. Yeah. So what it is, we install that into farms, and I got into biodynamics and I tested that first. I'm not subscribing to one system. I don't want to be known as the biodynamic farmer, because I still look at everything and I pull from permaculture, I pull from biodynamics, I pull from here. Whatever works, it gives me the easiest and quickest result. That's what I do. So I try not to just describe and have one area to look at. So when we got into that 15 years ago, my mentor, Hugh Lovell, he expanded that biodynamic broadcaster. So when you got two little pipes coming out on the side, two little elbows.
I see that. Yep.
And there's actually a little radio station in there. So the old radio crystals, before we had the technology which we have now, they used the crystal radio, and that's what's in there. So when we install them onto the field, onto the land, we put homeopathic biodynamic preparation at the bottom, which are the line polarity, and on the top we put in the silica polarity. So 24 hours a day it broadcasts these preparations onto the land. And what biodynamic does, it acts as the conductor almost. So it actually starts bringing the land into balance. It won't happen tomorrow, but it will happen over time. And then we had dramatic results from people where, one guy took me out to his farm and says, come have a look. And we looked over the fence and he goes, see this? And I go, yeah, look, it's green here. It's a meter green over the fence and it's brown. He says, yep, that's where this broadcaster broadcasts the energy to.
Right.
We had a guy who came to the Dowsing and he does cattle. And he said, when he put that in, we put 2 into his place. The cows are more gentle. They're not as agitated anymore. And the buffalo flies, when they come in, they still come in, but they don't hang around. They come in and they leave again. So he noticed that. And even in 6 months, he said that certain weeds started to change a little bit, which they maybe had their lifespan. Then they're not used to that frequency. So we bring this into another level. So it's a self-driven, energetic device broadcasting. We can broadcast peppers. We broadcast mostly biodynamic preparations then.
So is that broadcast go out horizontally, or is that a vertical?
So what we have, there's actually 700 go into the soil, and at the bottom we have got a copper plate, and then we've got an double insulated heavy duty pipe with a wire connected to the first bottom well, and the top has a copper plate as well, and they're half dome copper plates connected, so they're all connected with each other. Yep. And the radio stations are connected with each other as well in there.
True.
And the copper grounds the signals, is it?
It brings the signals in and transforms them. Yeah. So when you stand in front of one, and everybody can see that, if you look at them, you can see almost like a shimmer. So you can see the aura of that field. You probably see it in the picture quite as well a little bit. So everybody, it doesn't matter, even people who never had seen one, they see, some people see color, but you can see a little bit aura out there. It looks like, when you drive on a hot day, the car on the asphalt, you see that shimmering going on as soon as you install it and you charge it up. And animals are drawn to that. So we have to put actually a fence around when we do that in cattle properties, because they're going to go and they're going to make love to that pipe. And we have more wildlife come in, so it just creates a balanced field to increase the harmonic system and establishes harmonic systems on the land again.
All right. Hi, Helen, and sorry, just a shout out to our listeners, Helen and Alessandro. And Heinz, you probably, it's quite interesting that you and Jeff are both on the show, because Radio FM 88 does that as well. It broadcasts music 24 hours a day in order to improve the frequencies that the community that flow in the community. So I just kind of got shivers when I was listening to the two of you.
Hey, Heinz, baby. So I brought this photo up here. So you got, first of all, you got your field broadcast, and then above it is your Radionics machines, which are in the background of your video commentary tonight.
Yep.
So I noticed that you've got them set up like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Are they broadcasting on those 6 frequencies? Is that what the go is?
You mean the Radionics or the?
Yeah, I'll go to another page there where you got it. Hang on a sec. Where did I see it? Here it is here. Okay, so on this one here where you got 2, 3, 4, 5, and you got the knobs and all this stuff, is that relating to actually the broadcasting on the crystals through the broadcaster, or is that a unit there that's placed on the property for broadcasting out onto the farms?
No, these are the ones we have at home. So on the bottom, you see that's an instrument itself. So on the left side, the little one on the stand there, on the left side, there's a little well, and that's where we put the witness in. So we use a DNA. So what we use is a hair sample, or I like hair samples. Some people use blood samples, but I like the hair sample of an animal. And then you got two banks there, so we call them banks. And these are the two radio stations. So there's a left one and there's a right one. And so this will tune in the radio station. So to analyze, there's a certain rate. So when we want to check the vitality, that the rate is 949. So we will put 949 on the first bank, and then with the intensity dial, which is in the middle, we'll turn. And what will happen, we get the same reaction when you do a speaker, and you go with the speaker, with your microphone, you go to the speaker. What happens is you get a resonance. It starts, get that high-pitched noise. So that's the same setup here. When we start turning that intensity dial, and the black plate is the antenna and the stick plate, and when we get resonance, it sticks. So it's that dowsing response. So when that dowsing response stops, that's the intensity. Then we can measure the intensity for the vitality. So for example, it might be 50. And at the bottom one or the top one, we can put on, let's say we can put on a sacral chakra. So that has a signal for sacral chakra. We do the same process again. We go with the microphone to the speaker, and when we get the resonance, it will stop. Now, if that resonance is, for example, 30, but overall vitality is 50, that means your sacral chakra is not in balance with your system. So we might work on that. Now, the top one, where you got these 5 banks, these are additional radio stations. We can plug that in. So we can extend, instead of working just with 2 stations in one, we can go up to 20, 30, 40 stations in one go. So we need the instrument and the transmitter, which is the bottom one, and the top one are just additional radio stations.
Right. Okay. So right behind your right shoulder there, you've got one there that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That has 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, 18, and then the instrument has 3. So I have 21 on one, and the other one has 20. Okay. And then I got one with 3, another one with 24, another one with 8. So yeah, it's all for different purposes. Yeah.
So what you're saying, just hypothetically, then you talked about sacral chakra. Are you saying that you could do the whole human body, all those different energy centers in the human body?
Yeah. So I mean, we had one lady. She called up and she said, "Look, I don't feel very well, and nobody knew what the issue was. And can you check?" So we ran a scan, and everything came out good, no problems at all, until we seen food poisoning. So food poisoning suddenly way above what it should be. And so we said, hey, it's food poisoning, and nobody picked that up. So what we did a little help from this side, and 2 days later, everything was good.
Okay, very good. So
how much does it cost for a consultation like that? Sorry, Jeff, how much does it cost for somebody to get that checked out, their health checked out by you?
Yeah, so the initial scan is like $250, and then a follow-up is $200. And what is important is when we do this system, there's you might go through a bit of a healing crisis. So there's a few things we have to work together to make sure you drink enough water. We make sure that you get enough sleep, and if it's too much, you just have to let us know so we can tune it back a little bit.
Well, it's still cheaper than getting your car serviced.
Maybe I have to increase. No, it's we enjoy what we do, and I think we get the results, and that counts.
And when you say we, how many are there working with you?
There's myself and my wife. My wife has a few other modalities as well. I focus on the radionics mostly, and the dowsing. Yeah.
So I noticed that all up there, the Sunshine Coast. Do you actually come down to Brisbane or the Gold Coast for your workshops, teaching?
Yeah. So the next one is the dowsing will be in Palmwoods, and then in August we got a radionics course in Noosa, because we had international people come in, and they want to be a little bit on a vacation spot. and we have people from South Australia and Victoria came in, and they want to be in the warm. So we chose Noosaville with the Ivory Palms Resort, and get accommodation there as well. And unfortunately, it's a little bit of a different situation now, but we still have good bookings, and hopefully we can go ahead.
Yep. Very good. Well, I think it's been fantastic having you on. You got any other questions, Julia, or sorted?
No, likewise, Heinz. I've really enjoyed listening to you and learning from you, and you've restored my faith in the future. You're part of the cleanup team, and you're training up other people to be part of the cleanup team, and the farmers have tools and methods now to sort problems out. So, yep, I won't feel so bad about my kids and grandkids now.
And you can heal your boyfriend.
Yes, when he's ready to do that.
Very good. Very good. All right. Thank you very much, Heinz. And I see your good ladies just sent a little note there to say hello. So all good. Right. 11 minutes past 8 o'clock here in Brisbane, Queensland. And thank you very much for participating and listening to the show. Heinz, fantastic. And we'll probably see you around on the loop with the crew from the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, all right. But thanks for having me, and it was fun. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Just stay in the green room there, bro. Just hang on a second.